Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to Early Childhood Chats, the podcast. Andy Roszak with you as always. And look, as a parent, I'm always looking for different ways to keep my kiddos entertained. And to be very frank, I'm not a big guy that does a lot with screen time. So I'm always looking for creative ways to engage the children. But I don't really like the idea of just handing them an iPad and saying, here you go, kids, have fun. Recently, I was up at the Toy Fair event in New York City at the Javits Center, which was an amazing experience, and I got to meet a lot of really cool people, and one of those people happens to be with us today. It's Drew Vernon. He's from a company called Tonies, and Tonies is a really cool product. It is a portable audio box, for lack of a better term. I'm sure Drew will explain it better than I can, but it's essentially an audio box. It comes with these really cool little characters, and they've got licensing agreements with all the big ones, right? So Paw Patrol and, Disney and everybody in between. And essentially you put the Tonie on top of you put the little Tonie character on top of the Tonie box, and it's an audio system. It sings to you, it reads to you, it interacts with you, and I absolutely love it. My 2-year-old can use it, my 5-year-old can use it. It's just been a really cool system. So, Drew, I'm so happy you're joining us today. I'd love to learn about the Tonies, the origin story, what you guys are up to, how you developed this, and kind of what the future holds for you. So thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me, Andy. It was great to meet you in New York, and it's great to be with you today.
Well, wonderful. Well, tell folks about Drew. How did you get into this space? What's your background? What's the Drew origin story to bring you into this space?
Well, believe it or not, today is my Toniversary, as we call it. I started 6 years ago today, and been here ever since. I actually started out in marketing, so went to school in business for brand and product management at the University of Wisconsin, and came out of school, spent a couple of years at Procter and Gamble in Cincinnati, worked on some beauty brands like Olay and CoverGirl. Ended up moving over to a company called Cow, which is a Japanese company owning the Jergens body lotion brand. Worked on Jergens, and I kind of got tired of selling eyeliner and mascara and shampoo. Wanted to do something a little more fun, so that's what brought me to Lego, where I spent a few years managing the preschool business, the Duplo brand, and then I came here to Tonies in 2020 as part of the U.S. launch team.
Wow, well, that is a good origin story. Look at Wisconsin Badger, and it's interesting. My grandfather worked at Procter and Gamble. He was the deodorant supervisor in the Chicago plant for years and years until it closed. So interesting. So you've done a lot of crazy things, and I'm assuming working at Lego was probably quite the experience too.
I was a fan of Lego since my childhood. I got my first set as a kid back in the 80s, and I grew up playing with it, and it was kind of a dream to work there, and I was fortunate enough to get hired, and as I mentioned, spent a few years there, and really just got immersed into toys and the power of play, which we can get into with Lego or with Tonies now on my current company, but just the power of play and the need to give our kids the right tools and materials to grow and develop.
Well, so what I appreciate about Tonies is there's a lot of products out there, and they all seem to have, gosh, I almost hate to say it, but they all seem to go to this place of overstimulation for kids, right? There's bells and there's whistles and there's screens and there's blinking and there's beeping and there's all these things. Quite frankly, what I love about the Tonie is the simplicity of it all, right? It does what it does very well. It's very engaging to the kiddos, but it's not overstimulating. It's not in your face. And it's one of those things where once we listen to a song, we listen to a book, we listen to a story, we can transition away from that pretty quick. Where to be frank, a lot of my friends and even my own kids, if you got them in front of that iPad, it's very difficult to do when they're watching a show or, I've had the pediatricians even tell me, Andy, this TikTok generation, it's horrible for kids because their attention deficit's 10 seconds now because these parents are showing here's TikTok. Oh, here's the next one. Here's the next one. Here's the next one. And, you kind of wonder gosh, what are we doing to the brain in these young kids when every 10, 15 seconds we're on to something new. We're on to something new. So I really do appreciate what you all have done. What is the kind of background of Tonies? How did this get started? You mentioned you were part of the U.S. launch. Did it start in a different country, or what did it?
I did actually, yeah. So we're a German company. We started in the city of Dusseldorf, and it was started by a couple of dads who actually met on the board of their children's preschool. One was a designer, and one was an engineer. And I really like this story because it really speaks to the history of Germany in a lot of ways. Being well known for engineering and their automobiles. And also their rich history and storytelling with, the Brothers Grimm and fairy tales and things like that. So it was a perfect place for a company like Tonies to start because the engineer and the designer storyteller got together and they created the Toniebox, which was designed to be able to put the power back into the hands of the kids. So they actually saw that teachers at that time, back in the mid 2010s, teachers were still using CDs to play songs and stories, and they were kind of old technology at that time. And a lot of the technology was moving to streaming and to voice activated. And what that did is that really kind of took the control out of the hands of the kids, where they couldn't operate the audio devices any longer. So that's the birthplace of the Toniebox, was to make kind of a toyetic solution for the kids to be able to operate it and to put a Tonie on the Toniebox. And I can show one here.
Yeah.
We got the Toniebox. It's about a 5-inch speaker. You got the Tonie characters. They're magnetic. They go on top of the box, and the story or song begins to play. So that's how it started back in Germany in 2016. And within 5 years, they've gotten into one of every 2 households with a preschooler in Germany.
Holy
which
moly.
was just a meteoric rise for Germany. They expanded to the UK, and then in 2020, they were looking to expand to the US, and that's where I joined.
So give us a little bit of the data on the actual unit itself. Obviously, it's got a USB-C charger on it, which you can leave plugged in or you can charge. And I know we talked about this a little bit, just all the challenges it has when you make something that is for this age group. I mean, safety's got to come first when you're designing a product like this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I mentioned the launch in Germany. That was the original Toniebox. We've now recently moved to the Toniebox 2, so this is actually a second-gen device that launched in 2025. So this one has the USB-C charging. It's got a light ring on top, which is also like a sleep timer, and like a sunrise alarm. If you want to use this in a bedroom for kids to wake up, they can wake up to a Tonie. It's got a couple of ears here. These ears are part of the volume control. Also, how you turn the Toniebox on. So the big ear is going to be your volume up. Your small ear is going to be your volume down. And it's designed to be intuitive for kids. It's got a layer of foam around it, so it's squishable. It can withstand rough play. If the kid drops it or even throws it across the room, it's not going to take much damage. It's designed for rough play. And that's kind of it. It's operable by the kid. It's screen free, and it's just a great opportunity to introduce kids to stories and more.
Well, and you're 100% right. It is definitely good for rough play. In fact, if you want to advance the track, you actually take the side of the unit and you give it a good little whack, don't you?
That's right.
Which the kids love. I mean, it really is quite genius. It's simple. It's easy to use. It's very intuitive for the kiddos. And I know in New York, and I don't know if this has been publicly launched, but I saw that you were even designing one for the younger kids too, right? With bigger characters, I guess you would say, on top of them.
Yeah, so our traditional Tonies that I mentioned, these are we call these classic Tonies. These are for 3+. We've recently launched a line called My First Tonies, which are bigger silicone figures, where the content is also age appropriate. This one that I'm holding here is one of our farm animals, the pig, that's going to teach kids about the sounds that different farm animals make, and it's going to be appropriate for ages 1+.
Wow, that's great. And I got to say, these things they're magical how they fit in the kids' hands. They're magnetic, so the kids can stick them right on the Tonie. Yeah, it's a super cool product. I can't say enough good things about it, quite frankly. And your library, oh my goodness, you must have licensing agreements with everybody on the planet Earth. It seems like every time I look at your website, you just grow and grow and grow. Kind of brag a little bit. How many places do you have partnerships with? What are some of the great characters and stories you can hear on the Toniebox now?
Yeah, sure. We've been fortunate to have a lot of licensed partners. We have most of the big ones. The ones that we don't have, we should be coming out with. But we started with the Disney license, which kind of gave us validation as a licensed partner, coming out with the Disney princesses and the Pixar characters. That has now expanded into Universal, DreamWorks, Peppa Pig, Paw Patrol, Miss Rachel, Sesame Street, PBS Kids, National Geographic. I really like a lot of the literary characters from Dr. Seuss, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, and others by Eric Carle, Julia Donaldson, a lot from HarperCollins and Penguin Random House. And we actually just launched, I got it right here, one of my childhood favorites, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Right here. Wow.
So everything kind of from a long time ago to the current popular IPs. And we have an expanding list of licensed partners.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I hadn't seen the Mr. Rogers ones. We're actually going to have some of the folks from Mr. Rogers Center on an upcoming podcast, so stay tuned for that. That'll be an interesting one as well. But what a great throwback. That's amazing. So what is kind of the philosophy behind the Tonies? Obviously, you want, screen free is a big part of your culture, making sure the child can use it. When they're looking at these new, licensing agreements, partnerships, what's the framework? What are they looking for? Are there certain categories they want to try to make sure they're hitting, or certain content they're looking for? Or how do you guys approach that when you think about new partners in this space?
Yeah, I will say that this is kind of evolving over time. I think, when we started, as I mentioned, with Disney, it was mainly just focused on children's entertainment. That has now evolved and grown into looking for educational partners and developing educational curriculum. So we talked about how it's easy for kids to operate the device on their own, but also one of our big kind of selling points is the fact that it's screen-free. And this kind of coincides, I would say, with the U.S. launch back in 2020, which is famous for the COVID-19 pandemic. And this was really a turning point, I would say, in terms of kids' technology and media use. So at the time, and actually still, but it's less talked about, it's actually recommended that kids don't have any screen time up to age 2, and that they only have up to an hour for ages 2 to 5. And I've seen reports and research showing that up to 2/3 or more of kids are exceeding the recommended daily average screen time. Again, a lot of this was because of the pandemic. The school shut down. We all were working from home, and we were giving our kids iPads and Chromebooks at earlier ages for longer periods of time than ever before. Well, the pandemic subsided and our habits stayed. So it was hard to take away these devices from kids. Where we can kind of combat that as one of the alternatives is to be able to give kids this entertainment or educational experience where we're engaging the power of listening and the power of their minds, where they're kind of responsible for the creative visualization of the story that they're listening to. And so when you give a kid a screen, you're showing them the visual stimulus, which is the exact interpretation of the story. But when they're only listening to it, they're imagining what the descriptions are. They're imagining what they're hearing, and that's actually really important to their development to do so. And that's one of the powers of Toniebox listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And the brain science out there is pretty clear, and you see it. And look, you get it, right? I mean, the parents, like, when the kid's screaming and you're out at a restaurant and you don't want to be embarrassed, like, sometimes it's the path of least resistance, right? But should that be the practice or should that be the exception, right? It's something we always kind of think about. And, having children engage in a way that is creating all sorts of visualizations in their brain and letting them use all those synapses that are forming at an exponential rate is certainly something important. The other thing I love too is because you track, to some of the more traditional literacy, I guess, for lack of a better word, is you can literally sit with your Toniebox and it can read to you while the kid looks at the book and actually can start saying like, oh, these are the words on the page that the Tonie is reading to me. Obviously not a replacement for you as the adult doing that too, but it is pretty cool to see how like even you partner it up with a book, and because it's reading the books that we all know and grew up with, that's another way to kind of engage the children too in this.
Yeah, and that's actually a popular use in classrooms, especially, and at home. It's part of the step to literacy. The first step is listening to someone read to you. So, like you said, it's not a replacement, but it's definitely an opportunity for them to start to recognize words and letters as they listen to and follow along with the book.
So many years ago, we launched this project called Stories from Grandma. And the idea here, and I've got a grandma who's 101 years old. God bless her. She's on her way. In November, she'll be 102. So let's all pray she makes it.
Wow.
But the thought was, we're seeing so many of our grandparents, we're losing them, right? And they called it the Great Generation for a variety of reasons. And the idea behind the Stories from Grandma project was to capture those stories, turn them into children's books or children's stories, picture books, whatever have you, to kind of pass down to the next generation of what our grandparents were living through. I mean, times without Wi-Fi television, one or two world wars, like all these crazy things, right? I was really impressed by what you call the creative Tonies that are out there. And the creative Tonies, I'll let you explain it, but I see a lot of synergy with the Stories from Grandma in many ways. Again, kind of capturing the voice, capturing the stories, and really being a 21st century time capsule of a way to pass that down. So would you talk a little bit about kind of the creative Tonies, what they are, how you guys decided to make them, and kind of what they do?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we talked about the content Tonies, which you put on the box and they'll tell you a story. Those are preloaded with content. The Creative Tonies are blank and they're fully customizable with your own content. So you can actually put up to 90 minutes of your own audio, and that can be your own voice recordings, or that can be any MP3 or WAV audio file. And we just find that this is an open-ended use of recording and listening to different things. And one of those popular kind of ways to use it is connecting families with each other, especially grandparents with their grandchildren, or anybody, from whom you're separated. A lot of people going on business trips, wanting to stay in touch with their kids. But you mentioned, your grandma. What a great keepsake for you and your kids. That's their great grandma. And what a way to remember her, to have her voice recording. And we actually take this a step further sometimes. Again, you can record whatever you want on here, but I like to recommend that people give prompts to their grandparents. And it's kind of like an audio diary or an audio journal where you can give them specific questions of, tell me about your first date, or tell me about your first job. What was it like growing up in your time period? And that's just a great way to remember, and a great way to kind of hold the legacy of the elderly folks in our lives.
And you're also taking it even another step further. And I know many of our Head Start programs are working on parent engagement. And unfortunately, we know here in our country, we do have some incarcerated parents that, are separated from their kids too. And I know you've been working with some of the incarcerated population to, again, keep that connection alive.
That's right. Yeah. So I met a professor from Texas Tech University at a conference last year who works with the correctional facilities down in Texas. And he learned about the Creative Tonies and immediately sparked and said, this is a great way for us to keep separated families connected. And so we've actually gone into the prison systems with a specific programming where the inmates will record onto the Creative Tonies, giving personal messages. They'll be, reading stories. And those are sent over Wi-Fi to the children. And now the children can hear from their incarcerated dads anytime they want. And this has just been a really awesome project to work on. It's growing. They've actually gotten a couple of grants now to expand the program. And so that's just one of the specific cases of using Creative Tonies in a different creative way in order to connect families together.
Super cool stuff. I mean, you think about fatherhood and engagement and all that stuff. I mean, that's a really cool use case. And the thing too, just to like make it clear to the audience, you don't have to be in the same room with the Tony, as Drew kind of mentioned. There's a wide variety of ways to get content into that Creative Tony. So you can literally record it on your phone, even if you're halfway around the world, and send that file over, and it can be uploaded right into the Tony, right? So it's not like you need to be in the same room or in the same proximity, which is good, again, if you got a parent who's in the military and gets deployed or any number of different scenarios.
Yeah, it's just based on the app. You tap to record, you tap to save, and within a matter of seconds, it'll be on that figure, wherever in the world that figure may be.
Super cool stuff, man. Super cool. So take it, and I want to kind of pick your brain a minute here. If I am a teacher, how could I integrate Tonies into my classroom?
Yeah, there are a lot of different ways to do that. Some of it's going to depend on the type of classroom or the age that you're teaching. We have hundreds of Tonies here in the U.S. to choose from. Again, some of these are more entertainment focused. Some of them are a little bit more education focused. I've developed a suggested centers model where we have different categories of content, and those centers are what we call discovery. That's for our nonfiction content. That would be our National Geographic talking about space or dinosaurs or whales or the rainforest or what have you. That's part of our discovery center. We have our mindfulness center, which focuses on emotional well-being and resilience and breath work, meditation, mindfulness. That's our mindfulness center. We have a play center, which is designed around interactive play. So getting the kids, out of their seats and moving and grooving. We've got some popular children's musicians who have Tonies. We also have our reading center. So these are the ones we talked a little bit about that have matching books, come from the world of literature that promote early literacy. And then we have our creative center, which is the blank Tonies that we talked about, where kids can actually record their own songs or poems or stories to record onto the figures.
Wow, a wide variety of stuff there. It's almost overwhelming where you start, right? But a little bit for everybody, so you can kind of fit the needs for everybody. What is kind of the range when you say kind of like what's the upper end? Is it 10 years old, 12 years old, 7 years old? Like what are you seeing?
Yeah, so again, we started with the classic Tonies that were 3+. We've gone younger with My First Tonies that are 1+. We've also gone older into another format called Pocket Tonies. These are going to be for 5+, about 5 to 8, I would say, focusing more on educational topics. And then we've also launched audiobooks, which are full-length audiobooks featuring the Chronicles of Narnia or Big Nate or Ramona, things like that. That's going to take you to about age 10. We see most kids starting to age out after age 10.
And the great thing as well, not only does it have that speaker, but if you want the kids to be quiet, you can also hook up your headphones to it, right?
That's right. Yeah. So the Toniebox 2 has a Bluetooth capability where you can put on the headphones. I believe you can also put it out to a larger external speaker. Talking again about classroom use. The box itself is designed so that if a kid puts the box up next to their ear, that it's not going to, break their eardrums. And so we do recommend that the box has about one for every 4 to 5 kids. But if you do want to kind of pipe it out to a larger speaker, you can also do that.
Wow. I mean, it's just a phenomenal product. It's really interesting to see. And I love how portable it is because honestly, you charge it up and I don't know what the battery life is on it, but I've never had it go dead on me. So it's got to be a pretty good battery in that box you guys have got.
Yeah, it's about an 8-hour battery life, and I think that really is helpful as we talk about road trips. If you're trying to limit screen time, especially on the road or in an airplane, this is a great device for kids to take along with them.
Yeah, phenomenal. So kind of looking ahead at the field, and gosh, certainly in New York, we saw a lot of crazy stuff at the toy fair. What's, if you can reveal, what's the future plan here for Tonies? What do you guys got coming up? What's some stuff that's exciting you?
Yeah, well, I think you probably saw at Toy Fair. It was announced our partnership with Pokemon. So we've got Pokemon coming out soon. We have some other big launches that haven't quite been made public, but I'm definitely excited for the additional launches that are coming this year. I think in general, we're looking for additional ways to bring in new types of content. I actually also should mention with the Toniebox 2, we developed a screen-free game system called Tonie Play, where you put a disc on top of the box with a little dial, and you can actually, I might have one right here, actually. Again, some of these are more entertainment, some are more educational. This is called Disney Quiz Kingdom, and it's a trivia game featuring Disney trivia. So you've got a little cartridge that goes on top of the box, and then it will guide you through a different audio adventure, this one being trivia, but others being more of like a choose your own adventure or interactive audio content that kind of adapts to the choices that you make.
Wow, I didn't see that. Is that new? I must have missed that somehow.
This is fairly new. This came out with the Toniebox 2 last fall.
Oh, nice. Man, you guys are always doing cool stuff. So if a teacher wants to learn more, if a parent wants to learn more, what's the best way to kind of start learning about the Tonie universe and getting involved in all the cool stuff you guys got coming out?
Yeah, if you're interested in the Toniebox for your home, you can find us at Target or Walmart, anywhere nationwide, also at tonys.com or Amazon. If you're a teacher or you're interested more in the education side of things, I actually run the education program for the company. We do offer a everyday teacher discount of 20%. Also offer tax exempt ordering. So the best way to learn more about that is to go to the Tonies education website, which I believe you can find from tonys.com, or you can email us at education.us@tonys.com.
Wow, phenomenal. That's a good discount. Thank you for that. So I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, what is your favorite Tonie?
It's hard for me to pick a favorite because I work for the company and I have a lot of biases. My bias is that one of my childhood heroes growing up was LeVar Burton, who hosted a program called Reading Rainbow. He was the one back in the 80s and 90s who was using a TV show to tell us to turn off the TV and go read a book. And that really stuck with me. And when I came to Tonies, one of the first people that I called was LeVar. And he was gracious enough to partner with us and become our first spokesperson. So I had the privilege of co-creating a Tonie with my childhood hero. And for that reason, that's probably my favorite.
Yeah, I think that's okay. You could justify that. That's pretty cool. Wow. I had no idea. So he's still alive and with us and kicking, huh?
He is, yeah.
Wow.
He was a guest host on Jeopardy a couple of years back. And yeah, he's just been a really strong advocate for childhood literacy. And I would check out the LeVar Burton Tonie.
Wow. How cool is that, my friend? Well, geez. Well, I really appreciate all you guys are doing and just how well you're doing it. I think it's a phenomenal product and one that really is engaging. And kudos for the design team to figure out the manipulation, so it's not overwhelming to the kids. They're not getting frustrated, and it's something that they go back. And there's some magic there, right? Like the magnets make it magic. Like, how is this Tonie sticking on top of this box, and how does it read it and start right away? I guess we should probably, I'm just trying to think of what other questions people may have. Probably just talk about like connectivity and that kind of stuff. Do you need an active Wi-Fi connection to use this, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that the Tonies work is each one has a magnet inside as well as an RFID chip. So when you put any given Tonie onto any given box, the first time there's a download that needs to occur. So for the first time this is placed on the box, it does need to be connected to Wi-Fi. This audio content is now going to be stored on the memory of the box. And the next time this figure is placed on it, whether or not it's connected, it's going to unlock and play that content. So it does need to download the one time, but from that point on for this Tonie, it does not need to be connected to the internet.
And that's how it works during the road trips, right? Because it's already downloaded the content at your home or at your office or at your school, and then it can go kind of without the Wi-Fi and work. So, okay.
Correct,
Well, you've
yeah.
I got to tell you, you guys have really done a great job. You've thought of a lot of this stuff here. What questions, frequently asked questions, do you often get? What should I be asking you that I haven't thought about?
I really just like to take a step back usually and talk less about Tony's and more just about the mission. And we covered on it a little bit. But just to kind of reiterate that point is why should we keep our kids off of screens or why should we be giving our kids alternatives to screens? Actually, I don't know if you saw this week, they just announced the LA school district is going to limit screens and restrict screens up to grade 1. Starting with the next school year, which, if you've been paying attention, is pretty big news because as a result of COVID-19, that's when a lot of these schools, I talked about parents giving their kids iPads at earlier ages. Well, we did the same thing in our classrooms, and we started giving kids Chromebooks and iPads, and we said it's technology, it's good for their education. And now we're seeing not only is it not leading to better outcomes in a lot of circumstances, it's actually making kids more anxious and distracted. So big news this week coming out of LA is to restrict that in grades, up to first grade, and then to limit the screen time in older grades. So above and beyond my work at Tony's, and I'm fortunate because I'm employed by Tony's and, they pay my paycheck, but really for me, it's become more than that. I consider myself an advocate for childhood development, and whether it's a Toniebox or a box of crayons or a Magnetile set or a Lego set or running outside and playing in the snow or in the playground, I'm just really trying to get kids off of screens, and I think we can do that through a variety of methods, hopefully including the Toniebox. But that's just one thing that I always like to stress in these types of conversations.
I love it. Well said. And as the father of a 5.5-year-old that was born during COVID, I've seen a lot of her classmates that have really struggled, not to the fault of the child, but it's been that environment. And again, the parents, if you both had to work during COVID and you had a young one, unfortunately, a lot of the choice was just put them in front of a screen and they'll be okay, right? And we know the brain doesn't always work that way, right? It's something special about, being in the room with people and reading to people and that personal touch and connection, which quite frankly, you just can't get through a screen, right? So it's been interesting to see with, what do you think they'll call that generation? The Covennials or something, right? We probably need a name for that generation, I guess. But it's been interesting to see. And then, of course, having the 2-year-old, life is 100% different with her, right? So it's, I don't know. I hope we didn't damage a whole generation there. And the good thing is kids are pretty resilient and they can bounce back pretty quick. But I'm glad we're having those conversations and starting to kind of move away from the screens as being necessarily the leading practice. I don't think they are, and there's a lot of data that shows they're not, quite frankly, right?
Yeah, I think there's more data coming out all the time, and hopefully, we'll make some steps in a positive direction.
Well, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate all you're doing. As you know, you got an open invite. We'd love to have you guys come out to any of the conferences we got going on and chat more and put on a little workshop about, what this looks like in the classroom environment. And certainly the teachers that are listening to the podcast, I'd encourage you to check this out. It's a great product. Quite frankly, it's for what it does, it's not that expensive, to be very frank with you. And it is definitely an engaging tool that you can use in your classroom to help supplement some of the work you're already doing. And it's one of those that's, not just kind of like a gimmick. It actually does have a lot of science behind it. And as you heard, a lot of great content over a wide variety of areas. So it's not just all about, crazy storytelling and singing. It's got some really cool stuff it's doing too with National Geographic and the other partners. So definitely check out Tony's and see what they've been up to. Drew, I'll give you the last word, my friends. What do you want to say to everybody?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I have the fortunate opportunity to meet folks like you who are doing great work, who care about kids and their future. I have on my LinkedIn profile, I got former child, and that's to remind myself that I was once a child, and you only get one childhood. And the least that we can do in this world of chaos is to give our kids the right tools and hopefully the right materials to learn and to grow, and hopefully set themselves up for successful adolescence and adulthood.
Well said. I couldn't say it better. Well, thank you so much, Drew. Thank you for being here. Please say hi to everybody for me. I appreciate what you guys are doing. And certainly a big thank you to everybody listening today. Hope you found this one interesting and engaging. Maybe you learned about something new today and you can take it back to your classroom tomorrow. So we'll have a lot more episodes coming up on the Early Childhood Chats podcast. And stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. And this is Andy saying I will see you on the next Early Childhood Chats podcast.